scary stories.
They say silence is peaceful. I disagree. Silence has weight, especially when you're the only one left in a place where silence shouldn't exist. My name is Ryan Blake, and if you're reading this, God, I hope no one ever reads this. That would mean this place is still standing, and it shouldn't be. It started with a job posting. I had just gotten out of the army. Honorable discharge, PTSD diagnosis, a head full of static and memories I didn't want. VHX weren't cutting it, and therapy wasn't doing much besides digging up more ghosts. So when a security job popped up, easy hours, high pay, remote location, I took it. Red Pines Research Facility. The name didn't ring any bells. Neither did the recruiter's name, Mason Reed. But he didn't ask too many questions. Didn't care about my background. He just looked me up and down, handed me a set of keys, and said, "Don't go past Sector 6. And if anything starts whispering, don't answer." I thought it was a joke. I laughed. He didn't. The facility was buried deep in the woods, hours from the nearest town. The trees thinned out like they didn't want to get too close. A single road wound into the compound like a scar through dead earth. The place looked like a tomb, concrete, steel, and secrets. No windows. Just one rusting front door and a keypad that blinked like it was surprised someone still remembered the code. Inside, it was worse. The air was stale, heavy, smelled like dust and metal. The lights flickered even though the power worked fine. Some rooms looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Others were spotless. I couldn't figure it out. My station was a small glass booth near the entrance. CCTV monitors, a logbook, an old coffee machine, and a speaker system that crackled every now and then, even when I wasn't touching it. There was only one shift, night, alone, every single night. The first few hours passed quietly. At 11:47 p.m., a light blinked on in Sector 3. No one was there. I checked the feed. Nothing. The motion sensors didn't trip. Just light. On. Then off. At 12:03 a.m., the hallway camera glitched, showing static and what looked like a figure. Just for a second. When I rewound the feed, nothing. Then came the whisper. Right into the speaker next to me, faint like it came from underwater. "Ryan." I jumped out of the chair so hard I spilled coffee down my front. Grabbed the mic. "Who's there? This is private property." Silence. Then, "You're here again." I turned off the speaker. I told myself it was just an echo. Maybe someone pranking me over the comm system. But the static didn't stop. And when I stepped out of the booth to check the hallway, my name was written on the floor. In dust. Like someone had dragged their finger across the concrete. I didn't plan on going past Sector 6. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not stupid. But there it was. A heavy steel door at the end of the corridor. Bolted shut. Chained. Marked with a red sign, Sector 7, do not enter. Every time I passed it, I swore I could feel something pulling behind it. Like gravity worked differently there. Like the air was colder, heavier. One night I leaned in close, just listening, and I swear, I heard my sister's voice. She's been dead for 3 years. "Ryan," she whispered. "Don't leave me. Here." I ran. Didn't stop until I was back in the booth with the lights on full blast. Heart racing, hands shaking. A week in, I found an old maintenance room. Nothing special. Rusted tools, broken shelving. But one thing stood out. A full-length mirror, propped in the corner, covered in a dusty cloth. I don't know what made me lift it. Curiosity? Insanity? What I saw wasn't me. It looked like me, sure. Same eyes, same face, but it was wrong. The smile was too wide, the eyes too dull. It lifted its hand a second after I did. I blinked. The reflection didn't. I dropped the cloth and backed away. Later, I came back and smashed the mirror with a wrench. It didn't break, just bent, like glass made of smoke. By the end of the second week, I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. Much, too. The lights flickered every night at exactly 3:33 a.m. Doors opened and closed themselves. The cameras recorded things I never saw with my own eyes, and every night the whispers grew louder. Come to us. Sector 7 is open. You were always meant to return. Return? I'd never been here before. Had I? I started writing this journal to keep track of time, of my own thoughts, to remember what's real and what isn't, because the line is getting thinner. And tomorrow, I think I'll open that door. I stopped listening to music on my phone during shifts, not because I didn't want the distraction, but because I couldn't trust the silence anymore. The silence at Red Pines isn't normal. It breathes. Some nights it pulses, thick and wet, like it's got a heartbeat of its own. Other times, it's so deep, I swear I can hear my own blood moving behind my ears. I tried filling it with noise, old playlists, static from the radio, even podcasts. But no matter what I played, underneath it, there was something else. Whispers. Not like words. More like thoughts that weren't mine. And always, always from the walls. It was around 2:18 a.m. when it first happened. I was walking the corridor, between Sector 4 and the East Storage Wing, flashlight in one hand, logbook in the other, trying to convince myself I still believed in logic. Then, knock. A single, loud, purposeful knock from the wall to my right. Not a pipe, not the building settling. It was knuckles, bone on concrete. I froze, turned, shone my flashlight across the wall. Nothing. I took a step forward. Knock, knock. This time, faster. Closer. I backed away, hand tightening around the flashlight handle. I scanned the cameras later. There was no one there. But the sound had been real. So real it echoed in my chest. The next night, same wall, same time. 3 knocks. By the 4th night, I started marking the knocks in my logbook. 16 p.m. 1 knock. Cold spot felt behind left shoulder. 2:17 a.m. 2 knocks. Wall vibrated underhand. 2:19 a.m. 3 knocks. Whisper heard. Find me. I didn't want to believe I was going crazy, so I did what any rational man clinging to his sanity does. I investigated. I brought a stethoscope. Don't ask me why I had one. Long story. I pressed it to the wall where the knocks came from. At first, nothing. Then I heard breathing. Ragged, wet, like someone drowning behind the concrete. Then the voice. He buried me here. I threw the stethoscope like it burned my hand. It hit the opposite wall and cracked open. I left it there. I started sleeping with the booth door locked. And the lights on. The next clue came from the old facility blueprints Mason had emailed me weeks ago. I hadn't paid much attention to them before. Just a lot of gray blocks and line drawings. But something changed. When I opened the file again, there was a red circle drawn in what looked like marker. Room 43. Sub-level B. I was sure the circle hadn't been there before. I checked the file's version history. Nothing. Room 43 wasn't on any of the logs. Wasn't mentioned in the facility reports. But it was right behind the wall where the knocking came from. I shouldn't have gone there. I took the maintenance key and descended 2 floors through a rusted stairwell that hadn't seen use in years. Dust covered everything. The air was thick, metallic. Even the flashlight seemed dimmer. like the darkness was drinking it. Room 43 was at the end of the hallway. The door had no handle, just a single symbol etched into the center, like an eye split open. I turned to leave, but the knocking came again, from inside the room. 4 knocks, then 5, then a voice, louder than before. "You opened it. You have to finish it." After that night, the building changed. I don't mean figuratively. I mean literally. Corridors grew longer. The walk from the booth to the restrooms took twice as long. Doors appeared in places I hadn't noticed before. I tested it, left a roll of tape in front of a hallway camera, watched the feed. The tape moved 5 feet over 3 hours. No one touched it. It just slid. Like gravity leaned a different way now. I chalked it up to fatigue, stress, hallucination, until I tried to leave one morning. I stepped out to the main gate, and the road was gone, replaced by fog, endless trees, and silence. I walked for an hour. When I turned around, Red Pines was still behind me, closer than when I started. Something wasn't right. I mean, really not right. I went to my booth, tried to call Mason. The line didn't connect. Tried to email. My messages bounced back, flagged as invalid domain. I looked up Red Pines online. Nothing. No history. No facility listing. No employee records. It's like it never existed, or maybe it doesn't want to exist anymore. And that's when I realized I'm not guarding this place. I'm trapped in it. I started noticing it about a week after Room 43. At first, it seemed like a slip-up. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I was too tired. But then it happened again. Storage Room E, the one I always locked after inspection. Open. Same with the staff break room, the old emergency stairwell, and the back entrance to the archives. Doors that were shut and secured, now wide open. When I circled back, worse. Room 43. The door that once had no handle, now hung open every time I passed it. No sound, no air current, no visible pressure. It just opened. And no matter how often I shut it, it opened again. And when it did, I could hear the footsteps inside the room, pacing, slow, heavy, measured, like someone waiting. That night, I checked the janitor's closet for tools. A wrench, a hammer, a crowbar. Something that could reassure me. I wasn't even sure what I'd do with them. Maybe block the door? Smash the hinges? When I opened the closet, I found something that wasn't supposed to be there. A photo, black and white, curled at the edges, faded with time. It showed a man standing in front of Red Pines when it was still an asylum. But it wasn't just any man. It was me. My face. My build. Same eyes. Except, the photo was dated 1973. Someone had scribbled something on the back in pencil. He opens the doors, then he stays. My stomach turned. I dropped it, turned to leave. And the closet door slammed shut behind me. Hard. I yanked it open. No, one there. But something had changed. My reflection in the supply room mirror, it blinked, before I did. It started subtly. One night I checked my watch, 2:04 a.m. Next thing I knew, I was in the East Wing, with no memory of walking there. Time, 3:42 a.m. Almost 2 hours. Gone. Another night, I found myself outside the building in the freezing cold with my flashlight pointed at the woods. No coat, no radio, no clue how I got there. The worst? One morning, I checked the camera logs. I had left my booth at midnight, but the camera feed showed me, still sitting at the desk until sunrise, 2 versions of me and the one on camera. Never blinked once, Whatever is inside Red Pines, it doesn't just haunt, it writes. Strange symbols began appearing on walls I'd just checked. Curved, ink-black lines scratched into the paint. Sometimes they pulsed, just slightly, like they were breathing. One night I found one on my forearm, burned into the skin. I scrubbed, scratched, even poured bleach. It didn't fade. It was part of me now. A symbol that glowed faintly when I got too close to room 43. I tried taking pictures of it with my phone, but every image came out blank, like my arm wasn't there. That's when I stopped trying to document things. The door cried last night. Not creaked, not squealed, cried. Long, low sobs echoing from inside room 43, like a woman mourning something ancient. I pressed my ear to the door, and this time, the voice was clearer. He let me in. You will too. I backed away, started running toward the booth, but every hallway bent inward. No matter where I turned, I ended up back in front of that damn door. I don't remember screaming, but my throat was raw when I woke up, lying on the cold floor. In front of room 43. The door was wide open, but I couldn't see inside. Just darkness, and a faint heartbeat. Not mine. Last night, around 4 a.m., the intercom buzzed. It hasn't worked in years. It shouldn't even have power, but it lit up. And a woman's voice came through. Ryan, he's using your body. My skin went cold. She sounded familiar. Like my mother. But my mom's been dead 6 years, I answered. Who are you? Silence. Then, static. Then, he's already behind you. I turned, and the booth door was slowly closing. On its own. The mirror in the staff bathroom had a crack in the corner. It always had. I knew it like the back of my hand. One of those unchanging little flaws you stop noticing after a while. Until I saw the eyes. Not mine. Not a trick of light. 2 pale, milky eyes staring from that crack, deep within the glass. I froze, blinked, gone. I stared for minutes, waiting for them to come back. Nothing. Then I turned to leave, and the crack wasn't there anymore. Just a perfectly smooth surface, as if the glass had healed itself. I've started reviewing the footage from the east, wing more obsessively. The cameras aren't reliable anymore. Some flicker, some loop. But last night, I caught something I wish I hadn't. Room 43's door was open again. Wide. And something moved inside, not fully visible. Just an outline. A tall, warped silhouette. Too thin. Wrong proportions. It stood perfectly, still for almost 45 minutes. Then, it stepped out of the room. That's when I realized something else. The timestamp on the footage showed 4:32 a.m. I had been in that same hallway at that exact time, and I hadn't seen it. Or maybe it saw me. They're spreading. At first, it was 1 or 2 strange markings near the doors. But now they're on the ceilings, the floor, the insides of lockers. I even found one inside the microwave. Every one of them pulsing faintly, like they were breathing with the building. I asked around. No one else sees them, but I feel them. They buzz under my skin when I pass by, like tiny electrical shocks. Last night, I tried to draw one myself, copying it on paper. The pen snapped in my hand, the lights flickered, and I heard something behind me whisper, "That symbol is not yours." I was making rounds at 3:07 a.m., walking past the second-floor waiting room. The windows there overlook the east lawn, completely still at night. But tonight they reflected something wrong. Not the hallway. Not me. The reflection showed a different version of the hospital. Darker. Rotting. Covered in crawling shapes that moved like insects but were too large. They twitched and pulsed across the walls, And standing where I should have been was a woman in a hospital gown, head tilted, eyes wide open. She smiled in the reflection. I turned around. No one there. But when I looked back at the glass, she was gone. Someone, or something, is leaving messages now, etched into the paint with fingernails. Sometimes in chalk, sometimes in what I think is no. I won't say it. The first message was small. Stop looking. Then, days later, he opens doors. You lock them too late. And then, last night, written right across the inside of the front desk window. The walls don't hold him, but you might. I've begun hearing footsteps, not the normal kind. No boots, no shoes. These are bare feet, soft and wet, always, trailing just behind me. Never in front, never passing. Sometimes I stop and they don't. They catch up. Last night, I passed a dark hallway I had just walked through, empty moments before. And from the other side, I heard my own voice call out, "Hey, wait," exactly how I sound, same tone, same pacing, but I hadn't said anything. I stood still for what felt like hours, not moving, not breathing. Because if I answered, I felt like something would answer back. There's a locked door on the lower level, an old psychiatric seclusion cell. No key, no way in. I've checked it every night. It's been rusted shut for decades. But tonight, it was open. Slightly. Like someone inside had opened it from the other side. No sound, no air, just the smell. Rot, old and wet. Like meat in a drain. I stared into the darkness. And something stared back. I didn't see it. Not fully, but I felt it. The way you feel heat before a fire, or the way static clings to your skin before lightning. That pressure. That knowledge that you are not alone, and never have been. There's a ceiling hatch above the west stairwell. I've never opened it. Didn't even know it had one until it creaked open on its own while I walked by. A gust of air rushed down, not cold, warm, moist. I thought I saw hair hanging down, just a few strands, dark and long. I shone my flashlight up. The hatch was closed, as if it had never opened, but the hallway still smelled like decay. I've stopped saying their names out loud, the ones who vanished. Harold, the old janitor, gone. No one mentions him anymore. Sarah from the records office. Resigned, they say, but her desk is still warm. Even the security officer who shared my night shift. I can't even remember his last name now. I think the hospital is eating them. Not literally, but something worse, like the walls forget they were ever here. And now I'm scared they'll forget me. I don't sleep anymore, not really. Whenever I close my eyes, I wake up in a hospital room I've never seen before. Same dream, same dim yellow light. The machines are unplugged, the walls are stained. The bed is empty, but the sheets are damp. Like someone just got up. Sometimes I see myself lying there, other times I see someone else. Something else. It crawls across the floor and whispers in my voice. You should have stayed out of room 43. Last night I walked down the main corridor trying to get to the exit. I passed the same burnt gurney 4 times. Each time it was in a slightly different position. Once I touched it, and it was warm. Then I noticed the corridor wasn't looping. It was stretching. The walls were bending, widening like a mouth. Ceiling lights pulsed like heartbeats. And behind me, I swear I heard something say, "Keep walking. We're almost home." I recorded the screams. Every night, they echo from the ventilation shafts. Long, high-pitched cries that rise and fall, like someone's being flayed alive. I played them back for someone from admin this morning. He heard nothing, just static. I swear I hit play. I know the file was there. But now my phone won't turn on. The battery is full. The screen just shows a message every time I try. You're not allowed to tell. I locked my office door, blocked it with a chair. Then, I heard footsteps inside the room, behind me. I turned and everything looked normal, except my coffee cup was upside down. I never do that. It was placed neatly on the desk, as if someone wanted me to know they were in here, that they could get in any time. Now I keep checking the cameras obsessively. Sometimes, I see myself walking halls I haven't been to. Other times, the screen glitches and shows someone in my uniform, but the face is just a blur. Or sometimes it's mine, just wrong, smiling when I'm not. Yesterday, I laughed. I don't know why. I just stood in the elevator and started laughing until I fell to my knees. I couldn't stop. The lights flickered to the rhythm of my laughter, and the elevator didn't move. Just stayed on floor 3 even after I hit every button. I felt hands on my shoulders. I turned. No one there. But the smell of antiseptic and rot clung to me all day. And I think I saw a patient ID badge in my own name, on someone else's body. They disappeared into the wall. I tried to leave. Tonight I took my bag and ran for the east exit. I had the keys, the security code, everything. But when I reached the doors, they opened, to the same hallway, same burnt gurney, same flickering light. Except this time, all the room numbers were backwards, and something was scrawled in blood across the wall. You already left. Why did you come back? I ran to the parking lot, but the cars were covered in dust. All of them, including mine, like they'd been abandoned for years. I can't tell what day it is anymore. My watch resets every hour. I keep notes, but the ink fades. My handwriting changes. Sometimes I find notes written in a language I don't understand, taped to my own body. This morning I woke up in the supply closet, naked, with blood on my hands. No one said anything, but the head nurse looked at me and whispered, "You're not Ryan anymore." And I believed her, because I'm starting to forget who I am. It wasn't in my head. I know that now. Whatever's here, it's real, and it has finally seen me. Last night I heard a voice, not a whisper, not a dream. It was clear, like someone pressed their mouth to my ear. "You shouldn't have tried to leave, Ryan." I turned around slowly, heart pounding. Nothing. But when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't alone. Over my shoulder, a face, gray skin, no lips, black eyes, its head tilted, and then it smiled, not with its mouth, with mine. Room 43 wasn't supposed to exist. I confirmed it. There's no patient record, no maintenance logs. But the key was on my ring. Always has been. Tonight, the door was open. Inside, darkness. Walls covered in a sticky black mold. The floor was soft, like sponge, breathing. It wasn't empty. There was a hospital bed, straps torn apart, and something huddled in the corner, twitching. It was whispering my name over and over and over again. Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. And then it stopped. "We've been waiting for you." It didn't attack, it showed itself. It slid from the corner like liquid shadow, arms too long, fingers broken and twisting backward. It stood upright, but its spine cracked with every motion, as if adjusting to a human shape. Its head was stitched all the way around, like someone had sewn two faces together, and both were mine. I should have run, but I stood frozen as it stepped forward. Each footstep made the lights flicker, and with every flicker, the walls pulsed, the ceiling buckled, and the air grew thicker, like syrup. Then it spoke. "We remember every scream, Ryan." I ran out of room 43, down the hallway toward the stairwell, but the stairs led to the same hallway again. Every time I tried to escape, the hospital changed, the signs rearranged, the corridors grew longer, narrower, tilting. I smashed a window, only to find another hallway behind the glass. The emergency lights began flashing. The loudspeaker clicked on. Code black. Subject awake. Procedure commencing. There's no staff left. But I heard machines powering on in the ICU. Something was coming alive. And then the siren began. A deep, droning howl that vibrated through my teeth. In the chapel, I found a message carved into the altar. Don't let it turn around. I didn't understand until I saw it again. The entity, standing at the far end of the hallway, facing away, taller now, arms dragging on the floor, breathing heavily. I took one step toward the elevator, behind it, praying it wouldn't hear me. But then it began to turn. Slowly, its neck twisted all the way around, unnaturally slow, like something rewinding a tape. Its eyes met mine, and suddenly the hospital screamed. The walls bled. No exaggeration. Blood ran from the cracks like veins had burst behind the plaster. Ceiling tiles popped open. Black liquid rained down, and the rooms began to change. Beds flipped. Cabinets burst open. Machines activated with no one there. In one room, I saw a woman on a bed, eyes stitched shut, whispering prayers with no tongue. In another, an infant's cry echoed, but no baby was there, just a crib full of teeth. And in the hallway, it stood still, watching me, mirroring my every step. I ran until I hit the morgue. It was waiting, not standing, crawling up the ceiling like a spider. Its body stretched and split and reformed. It dropped in front of me, blocking the door. Its face was fully mine now, not a copy, not similar. Identical. It tilted its head, mimicking me. Then it opened its mouth, and from it came a voice I haven't heard in years. My mother. "You were supposed to die that night, Ryan." Then it showed me a vision. My car crash. The one I survived years ago. Except, in this vision, I didn't survive. This place, you made it, it said. You refused to die, so we kept you here. And in that moment, I understood. I never escaped that crash. All of this, the hospital, the job, the patients, it was limbo, and this entity, it wasn't a demon, it was death, and it was tired of waiting. They forgot you, Ryan. Let go. I screamed, I fought, I ran, but the hallways closed in, doors vanished, and then darkness. I shouldn't have opened it. A simple white envelope, no stamp. Just my name scrawled across the front like a whisper. Evelyn. I hadn't heard that name spoken in this town in over 2 decades. I was 8 when my parents vanished. No bodies, no blood. Just a vanished family photo and a locked front door that no one could open. Until they broke it down and found nothing. Now I'm back, and the house still stands. I can't tell if the walls are breathing or if it's just my imagination. I've seen too many therapists. Dr. Moore says trauma rewires the brain, but no amount of rewiring could explain how I knew what I'd find inside the attic. I haven't even gone inside yet, and my palms are soaked in sweat. The letter only had 2 words: come home. The moment I step into the house, I feel it. Something heavy and watching, not like a presence, more like a memory that's been waiting for me to return. The walls are the same faded green. The photographs are gone. Dust hangs in the air like ash. And yet, everything feels too intact, like someone cleaned up after a crime. The hallway creaks in a rhythm. The same rhythm I remember when I used to sneak into the kitchen at night. Only, now there are 2 extra creaks, footsteps, not mine. I turn around, but no one's there. My heart thuds painfully. I rub my arms. They're covered in goosebumps. That's when I see it, scratched into the wood of the hallway wall, just above the baseboard. She's not alone anymore. I call Dr. Helen Moore from my car. You're experiencing a trauma echo, she says gently. You've come back to the place where your psyche fractured. Expect memory gaps, hallucinations, fear responses. Do trauma echoes scratch words into wood? I whisper. She pauses. No, they don't. She tells me not to stay there overnight. I lie and tell her I won't. I run into Logan Harris at the local gas station. He's changed, broader, beard, but his eyes are the same, haunted and soft. You shouldn't have come back, he says without even saying hello. I had to, I answer. Do you remember the last time we played in your backyard? No. You started screaming. Said something was watching us from the well, but there was nothing there. He hesitates, then leans in and whispers, I think your house is alive, Evelyn. That night I sleep on the dusty living room couch with every light on. I dream I'm 8 again, standing in front of the mirror in the hallway. But my reflection doesn't move. It just stares and smiles. Behind me in the dream, my mother is calling out. But she sounds wrong. Hollow. Like a recording that's been played too many times. I wake up gasping. My arms are covered in tiny handprints. Dirt under each fingernail-shaped mark. There are no children here. At the end of the upstairs hall is a door that shouldn't exist. It wasn't here in the floor plans. And yet it's real. The knob is cold. Ice cold. When I touch it, I hear my father. Screaming, not remember, here, in my ears. As if he's behind the door, I fall back sobbing. I crawl away on all 4s, and for a moment, I see a figure standing at the top of the stairs. Not Logan. Not anyone I know. Just a silhouette with eyes like burning stars. Logan agrees to help me break open the door. We wait until morning. We use an axe. Inside the room is a child's crib, dust-covered. A rattle still sways in the corner as if it had just been dropped. Photos of me as a baby cover the walls, but my face has been scratched out in every single one. A mobile spins above the crib. It plays a lullaby I haven't heard since the night before my parents disappeared. I collapse, screaming. I'm brushing my teeth in the guest bathroom when I see it again. The hallway mirror. This time, my reflection walks away even as I stand. Still, my heart stops. It turns around and smiles. Not in a warm way, in a way that splits its lips far too wide. I throw the toothbrush. It hits the mirror, and the sound it makes isn't glass, it's flesh. That night, I record the sounds in the house. In the morning, I play them back. It's me breathing. Then, we never left. I freeze the tape, rewind, play again. We're still in here. My mother's voice. I run to the mirror, screaming for her, "Where are you?" The mirror fogs up on its own. One word appears on the glass. Closer. That evening, Logan tells me he saw something behind me when we were in the crib room. A face. Pale. Too long. Watching you. He tries to show me a sketch. Recognize it instantly. It's the thing from my dreams, the mirror woman. The thing that smiles. I lock every door. I board up every window. Still, I hear her whispering behind the mirror. You brought me back with you, Evelyn. Now I want to play. I don't sleep. Instead, I sit in the living room with the audio recorder playing on a loop. The voices aren't just whispers now. They're forming sentences. They say my name with affection and venom at once. Evelyn, it's safe here. Come closer. Let us finish the lullaby. But I know that lullaby ends in a scream. Logan shows up again. He's pale, shaking. I had a dream last night, he says. You were in that hidden room. You were feeding something, a shadow with your face, and it looks so proud of you. He hands me a photo. It's from my 8th birthday, only. He's in it, and he shouldn't be. He didn't move to the neighborhood until after my parents vanished. I never posed for this, he whispers. What is this place doing to us? In the hidden room, I find an old clock. Has no hands, but it ticks. Every time it ticks, the lights in the hallway flicker. When I try to move it, I see writing underneath. Time doesn't move here. It loops. Suddenly, I smell birthday cake and see flickering candles. I turn, and the room is filled with party decorations. Children's laughter echoes. But I'm alone. I dig through the basement and find a VHS tape marked Evelyn 8th B-Day. But I never had that party. I play the tape anyway. It shows me smiling, candles lit, my parents standing behind me, but then it skips. Now I'm crying. The cake is gone, and everyone is gone. A shadow stands behind me, stroking my hair. It bends and whispers something into my ear, but the tape warps before I can hear it. I rewind. The whispering is still there. This time, I hear, "You let us in." The mirrors are acting stranger. Sometimes I don't see myself at all, just an empty room. Sometimes I see another Evelyn. She's thinner. Her eyes are sunken. She smiles all the time. But it's the wrong smile. She follows my movements, but with a delay, like she's trying to remember how to be me. At night, she walks away from the mirror and stands at the foot of my bed, watching, waiting. I wake up screaming. I finally unlock my parents' old bedroom. It smells like burnt lavender and mold. The walls are covered in children's handprints. On the bed is a photo album I've never seen. Page by page, the photos shift. At first, they're of me. Then they become photos of someone wearing my face, but doing things I've never done. Hurting animals, standing outside Logan's window, watching him sleep. One photo shows me holding a knife to my mother's throat. I drop the book and vomit. Logan breaks down in the front yard. He sobs, says he's seeing his dead brother in his dreams. That his brother tells him I killed him. He screams at me, pushes me away, and then begs me not to leave him. I think we're both wrong people now. I think the house is making us into what it needs, he whispers. I don't know how to help him. I don't even know who I am anymore. I finally break open the back of the mirror. There's a small crawl space behind it, lined with bones. Tiny bones. Child's voice giggles behind me. I turn, but no one's there. On the back wall, someone's drawn a crude family. Mother, father, daughter. But there are 4 stick figures. The 4th is darker, taller, with claws for hands. Above it, in jagged letters, the one she invited. I follow the mirror hallway until I find another door. One I know didn't exist before. It's dripping blood from the frame. I put my hand on it, and I remember. I remember standing there as a child. I remember a voice asking me, "Do you want to see them again?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Yes." I open the door. Inside is a perfect replica of my childhood room, and my mother sits in the rocking chair, eyes black, mouth stretched open in a silent scream. I back away, but the room shifts. Now she's standing. Her mouth closes. She walks toward me. "You let it out, Evelyn," she hisses. "Now you have to feed it," I scream. The door slams shut behind me. I am trapped. The lights go out and I hear her voice whisper from the ceiling. "Happy birthday, Evelyn. You brought the cake. Now bring the blood." I don't remember falling asleep, but I wake up lying in my childhood bed. The blanket is the one with tiny yellow stars I haven't seen in 20 years. The walls breathe, literally. They expand and contract in rhythm, like the whole room is alive. Then a voice speaks, but it comes from inside my head. "You opened the door. Now you feed me. You made a promise, Evelyn." I escape the replica room, but when I find Logan, his eyes are bloodshot. He's staring at something I can't see. He tells me I stood over his bed last night. "You were holding a dead animal, Evelyn," he says. "You laughed. You said its blood was the key. What the hell is happening to you?" But I never left my room. At least, I don't remember doing that. I'm not sure I trust myself anymore. In the basement, I find a stone bowl. There's dried blood in it. When I get close, I hear whispering from the shadows. "Feed the hollow." The first time was love. This time, it must be pain. Something moves behind me. I turn. There's nothing. But my hands are red when I look down, and I don't know where the blood came from. My mother appears again. She looks alive this time. Normal. She's baking, humming, smiling. I sit across from her, tears running down my cheeks. "Why did you leave?" I ask. She smiles, then slowly lifts her hand and peels her face off. Underneath, teeth. Just teeth. Rows and rows of them. "You wanted your mommy, so I wore her face." I touch a photo on the wall, and a memory floods my mind. Not just visual, but full body. I'm 6 again. I'm in the woods. A man is lying on the ground. He's bleeding. He begs me for help, but I don't help him. I kneel beside him and start to hum a lullaby, and something comes from the shadows. Something with my voice. "Good girl, Evelyn," it whispers. "You did it before. You'll do it again." A mark appears on my arm overnight, black and pulsing. When I touch it, I see flashes. Logan screaming. My father's final breath. A mirror version of me smiling while holding a knife. The mark burns. "This is your bond," the voice says. "Your contract. You are the key, Evelyn. You are the door." Logan wants to leave. He packs bags, pleads, with me to go with him. But I can't. Because the hollow gives me an offer. Bring him to the basement. Offer him. And your parents return. It's not just a hallucination. It feels real. I smell my mother's perfume again. I hear her laughter. Logan. Or them. The choice tears me apart. The house begins leaking. Not water. Blood. From inside the walls, dead birds, rats, and human teeth spill out. The house moans. Literally moans. "Feed me, Evelyn. Give me his breath. I can't take it anymore." I take the kitchen knife. I walk toward Logan while he's sleeping. I raise it. My hand trembles. Then, he opens his eyes. He doesn't scream. He just says, "I forgive you," and I drop the knife. Even though I don't offer him, the hollow is hungry. Logan is dragged into the floor. His scream is the loudest sound I've ever heard. It rattles my bones. The walls shatter. The blood bowl fills on its own. And through the screaming, I hear my mother's voice. "Thank you, baby. One more to go. The hollow isn't done. It wants more. And I'm starting to think I want to give it. I wake in a hallway lined with antique mirrors, hundreds of them. Some cracked, some clean, all reflecting something different. In some, I'm still 6 years old. In others, I'm covered in blood. One shows me smiling, but my teeth are sharpened and my eyes are black. I try to turn away, but the hallway never ends. You've hidden yourself long enough, Evelyn. Time to meet her. One mirror doesn't reflect me. It shows a version of me in a black dress, humming the lullaby from my childhood. Her smile is too wide. She holds Logan's necklace. Blood drips from her fingers. I am what you buried, Evie. You needed me to survive. I did what you couldn't. She leans forward and whispers, I never left. I'm in your skin now. I find a hidden VHS in the back of the closet. It's labeled July 14th, the night they vanished. The footage is grainy. I see my parents arguing, thunder outside. My mother says something that chills my spine. She did it once before. Don't you see it in her eyes? Then the camera drops, screaming, and I see my own small face, staring directly into the lens, smiling. They come at night. Mother, father, Logan, even neighbors from long ago. They knock on my door. They speak through walls. They stand behind me in the mirrors. You made us, feed us, let us in. Don't pretend this isn't what you wanted. I lock myself in the attic, but the attic bleeds. I'm drawn back to the hallway of mirrors. The hollow speaks again. Choose one and walk through. I step into the reflection that shows me completely alone. The house is empty, clean, peaceful. But then I see my reflection is gone. I'm trapped inside the mirror now, watching, while something else walks in my body. My body, taken by her, starts changing. She paints the walls with symbols in blood. She prepares another offering. The only person left who ever looked for me, Detective Marshall, who returned after new leads on my parents' case emerged. I scream, trapped in the mirror, as she lures him in and begins sharpening the knife. I watch helplessly as I welcome Marshall. He's kind, warm. He says, "You've been through too much, Evelyn." Then my mirror self slits his throat. I slam against the glass. I feel everything. His blood runs through my own veins. I taste the iron. I hear his final breath inside my mind. The hollow whispers, "See? You were always the blade." Something inside me snaps. I scream so hard the mirror shatters. I'm thrown into darkness, cold, and then I wake in the real world. Or is it? My hands are covered in blood. Detective Marshall is dead in front of me, and the knife is still warm. I don't know if I did it, or if she did. Maybe there's no difference anymore. The hollow speaks through every object now. TV, water taps, broken clocks. I see myself in every reflection, but never quite right. Twisted smiles, black tears, lips moving on their own. I finally ask, "What do you want from me?" And it replies, "Nothing. You already gave me everything. You were my gate." Then, I remember when I was a child. I asked it for something, and it listened. I find a note in my own handwriting I don't remember writing. "You were weak. I was strong. I kept us alive. I am not sorry." The mirrors explode all at once. Glass rains around me, and through the shards, I watch her walk away, free. She's taken my face, and I'm left behind, shattered. I wake up in the basement, nails in my wrists, eyes swollen shut, my mouth stitched closed. But I'm walking. I see myself moving in a dusty mirror. My reflection drags a lifeless body, Detective Marshall's corpse, and hums the same lullaby. My thoughts are buried under fog. Every blink is heavier than the last. You're watching your own funeral, Evelyn. But don't worry, something beautiful is growing inside. I feel it under my skin, crawling, shifting, breathing. It pulses when I touch the bloodied walls. It moans when I sleep. My skin stretches unnaturally, my bones cracking softly in the night. I vomit feathers. My nails fall out. Something is changing, me, from the inside. The hollow is gestating. I wake up in my childhood bedroom again. Every clock is frozen at 3:07 a.m., the exact time my parents vanished. I walk into the kitchen. Marshall is alive again. He turns, smiles, and says, "I'm here to help, Evelyn." Then he begins bleeding from his eyes. His skin peels off slowly like paper. Next morning, I wake up again in my bedroom. Same time, same blood. And again, and again. Each loop gets worse. I try watching the VHS again. This time, it's just static. Except for a flicker. 1 second. Just one. I freeze frame it. It shows me as a child, holding a newborn, smiling into the camera. Behind me is a figure, tall, faceless, skeletal arms resting on my shoulders. On the tape is carved, "The hollow was always yours." I begin hearing it move through the house at night. Footsteps too wide to be human. Breathing that sounds like wind through glass. And sobbing like a baby. In the mirror, I'm visibly pregnant now. But in reality, I'm not. At least, not yet, but I feel it. What's inside you, Evelyn, was never meant to be born through flesh. They appear at the foot of my bed, my parents. Pale, wet, eyes entirely white, mouths sewn shut, just like mine in the dream. They point toward my belly. They scream without sound, then vanish. A note appears under my pillow. You let it in. You're the door. The child was the price. The house starts breathing. The walls pulse. The floor grows warm like skin. Every door bleeds black fluid when opened. The photographs melt. The furniture rearranges itself. I hear lullabies playing from the pipes. I try to run, but outside is just more of the same hallway. I've been swallowed. I'm inside it now. Fall asleep. I dream of childbirth, but the baby isn't a baby. It's a wet, eyeless version of me. It crawls from my mouth, not my womb. It whispers, "You've been a cocoon, not a host." Thank you, Evelyn. You were always meant to break. In the final moments of this part, I collapse in the bathroom. The floor is covered in salt. My skin begins splitting open. Light and shadows pour out. The child emerges. Not flesh. It's the hollow, shaped like a girl made of memories, pain, and screams. She speaks in my voice, but backwards. She steps over me and walks into the mirror. And for the first time, I feel nothing. I awaken inside the mirror. There is no sky here. Just infinite halls of broken glass, each reflecting versions of me. Crying, screaming, laughing with no sound. I walk barefoot over shards, each step bleeding memories. The air hums with a single whisper. You are the house now, Evelyn. I see them. Dozens of Evelyns. One is still a child, hugging a teddy bear soaked in blood. Another is skeletal, eyes missing. One smiles and says, "You should never have come home." They attack me. They claw, bite, tear my skin. But I don't bleed blood. I bleed images. My 7th birthday. The basement. My father's last hug. My mother screaming, "I'm not fighting them, I'm remembering." One mirror shows me the past. I can see clearly now. My mother had been pregnant with twins, but one never made it. The night of their disappearance, they didn't vanish. They gave themselves to the Hollow, an ancient entity of grief, feeding off forgotten pain. To save me, they sacrificed themselves. And the twin I never knew I had, the Hollow is her. The sister I was never told about. The one who never got a name. My body begins to crack like glass. The Evelyns chant around me. She was never born. You lived her life. Now she wants it back. The real world begins to bleed into this place. Marshall's voice echoes, calling my name from the real house. The mirrors begin shattering. Each shattering creates an explosion of pain. Every mirror is a memory I've tried to forget. And now, I must break them all. The scene resets. I'm back in the basement. Candles are lit in a circle. My reflection stands across from me, pregnant with the Hollow. She speaks in a voice layered with mine. You kept me buried. Now I'm born. Choose. Live as a ghost, or die and set us both free. I pick up the ritual knife from the floor. I place the blade to my own heart. You'll never have me. Not like this, she screams. The mirrors collapse. The floor opens like a mouth. I stab myself. Once, deep. Darkness consumes everything. I awaken in a hospital. The detective is alive. The house has burned down. The VHS tape is gone. The mirror in my room is shattered. But I still see her, just a flicker, in reflections. She watches. She waits. They say trauma can split the mind. But what if it also splits the soul? I buried a sister I never met. And now she lives in every shadow I cast. The Hollow was never a demon. It was a missing piece. And I still feel her, waiting to come home. The gravel crunched beneath the tires like brittle bones. We had been driving for 6 hours straight, and I could feel the silence between me and Ethan beginning to grow a little louder than before. Not the awkward kind, just still. Like the forest we were now surrounded by. Pine Ridge, deep in the mountains, off-grid, and far beyond cell towers or help. Still sure about this? Ethan asked, glancing over with that crooked smile of his. I forced a smile back. Of course. But inside, something was already tightening in my chest. Like a warning. A memory. I had been here before. Not Pine Ridge exactly, but woods like this when I was a child. My parents had taken me camping once, just once, and never again. They never came back. That memory was buried somewhere dark. I hadn't thought about it in years. But now I could smell it. The forest had a scent, damp earth, dead leaves, and something else. Decay. We stopped at the last gas station an hour ago, just before the road disappeared into gravel. An old man at the counter, skin like bark, cloudy eyes, watched us too long. When Ethan said we were heading up to Pine Ridge, the man froze. Literally. You take the North Trail? He asked slowly. Yeah. GPS said it's quicker. His lips twitched. It won't be. What do you mean? I asked. He looked at me, right in the eyes. They say the woods don't forget up there. Things get left behind. Ethan laughed. It off, I didn't. The clearing was beautiful, secluded, peaceful, in a storybook kind of way. The trees rose high like cathedral pillars, sunlight slicing through the branches in long golden beams. Our tent sat perfectly in the center, bright orange against the sea of pine. We unpacked, built a fire ring, laid out the sleeping bags. Ethan cracked open a beer and offered me one. I declined. As the sun began to fall behind the ridgeline, long shadows stretched out across the dirt. "Want to go for a short hike before dinner?" he asked. "No," I said too quickly. "Let's stay close." He raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." I wasn't. I just didn't want to go into those trees. Not yet. Not with night coming. By the time we got into the tent, the forest was alive. Not with animals or birds, but with sound. Low, distant crackling. Twigs snapping. Leaves rustling in places where there was no wind. "I think something brushed against the tent," Ethan whispered. I didn't answer. I had already heard it. A soft, dragging sound like a hand. Then something else. A whisper. "Lily." I bolted upright. "Did you hear that?" Ethan sat up. "What?" Someone said my name. "You're dreaming. Get some sleep." But I knew I wasn't. Because the voice that whispered my name was my mother's. The morning was fogged in. Mist curled around the trees like fingers. Ethan didn't mention the night. Maybe he didn't hear it. I didn't ask. Instead, I walked down the trail a little way, pretending to take pictures of the moss and trees, trying to clear my head. But the further I went, the less I felt alone. At one point, I turned around suddenly. Nothing. But the trees felt closer. The forest, tighter. Watching. And there, etched into the bark of a tall pine, was a symbol. A circle. Inside it, a face with hollow eyes and a mouth stitched shut. Underneath it, scratched deep, "No way out." I stumbled backward. Then I heard it again, my mother's voice. "Lily, why didn't you follow me?" Back at the campsite, Ethan was boiling water for coffee. I didn't tell him what I saw. I told myself I was imagining it. But that night, it got worse. The tent felt too small, too warm. I kept waking up, drenched in sweat, hearing movement outside. Then I heard a zipper. Not ours. Another tent? No. We were alone. I knew we were. I held my breath. Ethan stirred beside me but didn't wake. "Lily," the voice said. "Right, outside the tent flap." "Come see." I grabbed the flashlight. I unzipped the flap. I shone the light into the trees. And there, about 20 feet away, was a woman in a white nightgown, barefoot, standing motionless, face obscured by hair. Exactly. Like the last dream I had of my mother. I screamed. Ethan scrambled out. "What? What happened?" I pointed. She was gone. She was just there. Right there. "Who?" "My mother." Ethan stared at me. "Lily, your mom's been dead for 15 years. I know. He didn't believe me. I wouldn't have either. But I knew what I saw. The next day, I found something strange near the edge of the clearing. A small pile of smooth stones, arranged in a spiral. Underneath them, a journal. Old, worn, pages damp and yellowed. The name inside, Cassandra Reed, 1976. The first page. I came up here with Andrew. He said it would be romantic. But now, I keep hearing voices at night. They sound like people I know. People who are dead. That night, the voices multiplied. They didn't just whisper my name. They cried. They screamed. One of them sounded like Ethan, screaming for help. But when I looked beside me, he was there. Sleeping. When I shook him, he sat up. Too fast, eyes wide, smiling too wide. "Found you," he said, then blinked. Then it was gone. The fire was dying down to glowing embers when I first noticed Ethan wasn't himself. He was staring into the dark woods, eyes glassy and distant, like he was seeing something beyond the trees, and beyond me. "Ethan," I whispered. But he didn't answer. A low wind picked up, swirling leaves around our campsite. The shadows stretched longer, darker. "I'm going to bed early," I said, forcing my voice steady. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, me too." But the way he said it, like he was barely there, sent a shiver down my spine. Inside the tent, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every noise outside made me jump. The snap of a twig, the distant hoot of an owl, the crunch of leaves under invisible footsteps. I wrapped the sleeping bag tight around me and closed my eyes, willing myself to sleep. But sleep didn't come. Instead, I was dragged into a nightmare. In my dream, I was back in the cabin from the journal, Cassandra's cabin. The walls were covered in scratches, deep and frantic, like someone or something had been trapped inside, clawing for escape. The air was thick with the smell of rot and old blood. I heard a voice, soft and pleading. "Lily, come home." I turned to see my mother standing there, eyes hollow, mouth sewn shut with thick black thread. She reached out to me, but her hand was twisted, like bone beneath skin. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I jolted awake to a sharp, stabbing pain in my side. Something was biting me. I threw back the sleeping bag. Nothing. But when I looked down, I saw 3 fresh, bloody puncture marks. I rubbed my side, heart pounding. "Ethan!" I called. But he was already asleep, breathing, steady and untroubled. Outside, the forest came alive with whispers. They weren't just voices anymore. They were chants. Rhythmic, haunting. Faint footsteps circled the tent. A shadow passed the flap. I held my breath. The zipper zipped open. It was him. Or it wasn't. Ethan. His eyes were black pits. His smile stretched too wide, revealing teeth sharp and gleaming. "Come with me," he said, voice low and terrible. I screamed and slammed the flap shut. Morning came, pale and weak. Ethan acted normal, but I saw the bruises on his wrists. He wouldn't say how they got there. I was scared for him. And for myself. We tried to leave. The car wouldn't start. No signal on our phones. We were trapped. At night, the chanting grew louder. More shadows appeared. Figures, with hollow eyes, stitched mouths, circling the campfire. I realized with horror that they weren't spirits. They were the lost, the forgotten, the ones who never escaped. And now they wanted me. The forest no longer felt like nature. It felt like a cage. Every night the whispers grew louder. They weren't just voices anymore. They were promises, threats, memories bleeding through time. They spoke my name. Not just Lily, but full names. Names I had never heard. They called to Ethan too, twisting his face into a mask of fear and anger. I stopped trusting my own eyes. Reflections in the tent's zipper showed figures standing behind me, pale faces with stitched mouths, eyes dark and endless. I spun around. Nothing. My dreams were worse. I saw the cabin again, this time burning. Cassandra screaming, her mouth sewn shut, running through the flames with blood pouring down her face. And then I was her. And then I was my mother. Ethan began to change. Some nights he wasn't there, or worse, he was But he wasn't himself. He whispered secrets in tongues I didn't understand. His eyes glowed faintly red when the firelight hit them just right. I tried to leave again. The car was still dead. The trees shifted, branches twisting like hands trying to trap me. Paths I knew disappeared. The journal was my only anchor. Inside, Cassandra's handwriting turned frantic, chaotic. She wrote about a presence, a darkness that fed on fear and memories, that wanted to drag us into its endless nightmare. One night, I woke to find Ethan gone. I followed a trail of wet footprints leading into the woods. A voice called me deeper. I found him at the cabin ruins, chanting in a language older than time, his body twitching like a puppet on strings. I screamed his name. He turned, eyes black as voids, smiling that terrible smile. "Join us," he said. I ran. The forest was alive now, breathing, watching, waiting. Don't know how much longer I can hold on, but I have to. Because if I don't, they will take me too. After the terrifying encounter at the burned cabin ruins, Lily returns to camp, shaken and alone. Ethan is missing, and the forest's atmosphere has turned sinister beyond anything she's imagined. The sun is weak, shadows loom unnaturally long, and every sound feels amplified. Branches cracking, whispers swirling like the wind. Lily's mind teeters between reality and hallucination. The journal pages seem to shift, revealing new, cryptic messages about the Hollow Ones, entities described as souls lost to darkness, who steal identities and memories. As night falls, Lily feels an overwhelming presence. She glimpses pale, hollow-eyed figures lurking at the edge of the trees. They move silently, watching, waiting. Lily tries to call out to them, but only hears a hollow echo of her own voice. One figure steps closer, a woman with threadbare skin and mouth sewn shut like in her nightmares, eyes pleading but empty. This encounter breaks something inside Lily. Ethan returns, but something is wrong. His eyes lack their usual warmth. His smile is brittle. He whispers strange phrases, warnings she can barely understand. He admits to seeing the Hollow Ones, but claims they showed him the truth about the forest and Lily's own past. Tension builds between them. Is Ethan still himself, or has he become a vessel for the darkness? Lily's grip on reality fractures. She starts seeing versions of herself, reflections that don't mimic her movements, shadows that linger too long. The journal's entries become more urgent, describing how the Hollow Ones feed on fear and sorrow, erasing the living, until they too become hollow. She questions whether her parents' disappearance was real or the forest's illusion. The forest seems to whisper secrets in her dreams, revealing fragmented memories of her childhood. Her parents arguing, a strange figure watching from the trees. She finds a hidden clearing marked with old symbols, sigils meant to keep the Hollow Ones at bay. Inside the clearing, Lily finds a tattered photograph of her family and a broken locket belonging to her mother, linking her past to the forest's dark history. As night falls, the Hollow Ones close in on camp. Lily prepares a desperate defense, using candles and salt from the journal's instructions to create a protective circle. The Hollow Ones attack with chilling whispers and spectral hands that claw at her mind. Ethan fights alongside her but struggles against an internal darkness. Just as Lily believes she has held the Hollow Ones at bay, a figure emerges from the shadows. Her mother, but distorted and hollow, eyes empty, mouth stitched shut. The chapter ends with Lily frozen in terror, realizing the forest is not only alive, but hungry for her soul. After the harrowing encounter with the hollow version of her mother, Lily is shaken to her core. She questions what is real and what is a cruel trick of the forest. Ethan is visibly struggling, his moments of lucidity fading as the darkness grows, stronger within him. Lily realizes they must venture deeper into the forest to uncover the truth and possibly break the curse. Lily and Ethan pack minimal supplies, candles, salt, the journal, and a knife. The forest thickens and warps, branches twisting into grotesque shapes, shadows shifting unnaturally. The forest itself seems to resist their progress, disorienting them and forcing them in circles. Strange symbols carved into trees glow faintly, as if marking a path, but they also emit a feeling of dread. They find an abandoned cabin deep in the forest, far older and more decrepit than Cassandra's. Inside, they discover remnants of a cult that once worshipped a dark entity, the origin of the Hollow Ones. The cult's rituals were meant to imprison the entity, but something went wrong, causing the forest to become a trap. Lily finds old letters and diaries revealing the cult's descent into madness, paralleling her own experiences. Ethan's possession worsens. He begins muttering chants, his body convulsing as the dark entity tries to consume him. Lily desperately tries to hold him, fighting to bring him back to himself. At one point, Ethan attacks her, but the real Ethan fights through, whispering that they must finish what the cult started. The cold bit into my skin as Ethan and I pushed deeper into the forest's heart. The trees closed around us like sentinels guarding a secret better left alone. Every step felt heavier, like the ground itself resisted our intrusion. Lily, are you sure about this? Ethan's voice trembled. His eyes flickered. Sometimes clear, sometimes shadowed, with something darker. I swallowed my fear. We don't have a choice. If we want to stop this, if we want to end it, we have to go further. He nodded, but the way his jaw clenched told me the battle inside him was far from over. The journal was our guide, its brittle pages inscribed with warnings and rituals from a long-forgotten cult. According to the faded ink, they once worshipped a darkness that dwelled beneath these woods, a force so ancient it twisted souls into hollow shells, feeding on fear and despair. We moved cautiously, shadows dancing on the edges of our vision. The forest around us seemed alive, breathing, watching. Branches creaked overhead, sounding almost like whispers. At last, we stumbled upon the cabin. It was barely more than a skeleton. Weathered wood, windows like black eyes staring out into nothing. Inside, the air was thick with decay and something else. Something corrosive, like the bitterness of long-held grief. Dust-covered books and relics lay scattered. But what caught my eye was a series of crude symbols etched into the walls. Circles, with jagged lines all pointing inward toward a central spot on the floor. The altar. I stepped closer, heart pounding. "This is it," I whispered. Ethan scanned the room, his breath shallow. This is where it began, where it all went wrong. We found more papers, letters from the cult's leader, a man named Solomon. He wrote of a ritual to imprison the darkness, but it was clear he lost control. Something answered, one letter read, and now it hungers for more. Suddenly, Ethan's body tensed violently. His hands curled into fists, and he began chanting in a low, guttural tone. His eyes glossed over with blackness. "Ethan!" I shouted, grabbing his shoulders, trying to break through. He shook violently, then gasped. "We have to finish the ritual, or we're lost." Tears stung my eyes. The man I loved was slipping away, pulled deeper by a force I could barely comprehend. Using the journal, I gathered the remaining ingredients: salt, candles, and a small dagger stained with rust. The ritual required us to descend into the cavern beneath the cabin. The air grew colder, heavier, as we entered the gaping maw of darkness. The cavern walls were slick with moisture, shadows twisting into shapes that made my skin crawl. Whispers echoed around us, indecipherable and haunting. At the center, a stone altar sat beneath a jagged opening, through which a blackness like liquid ink poured upward, swirling and coalescing into a mass that seemed to consume light itself. Entity. It wasn't a creature of flesh or bone, but a living void. It pulsed with hunger, radiating despair that seeped into my bones. Ethan trembled beside me, muttering the words Solomon once wrote. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The ritual was a dance with madness. Salt burned the air, candles flickered against the suffocating darkness, and the dagger traced symbols of binding and banishment. The void writhed, howling silently, as if protesting its fate. But with each word we chanted, it weakened. Just when I thought we had won, the cavern trembled violently. A cold hand gripped my ankle, pulling me toward the abyss. I screamed. Ethan grabbed me, pulling us both back. But I saw in his eyes, he was not safe yet. The forest's curse was not broken. It had only just begun. I never imagined the end would come like this, shrouded in shadows, breathing cold like the grave, and carrying the weight of every nightmare I'd ever tried to forget. But here I was, standing at the edge of everything, the forest alive around me with whispered threats, and Ethan's dark eyes fixed on the abyss that threatened to swallow us whole. The cavern's echo was like a heartbeat, slow, monstrous, and relentless. The darkness stretched before us, blacker than any night I'd ever known. The void was patient, hungry, and I could feel its gaze burning through my skin, clawing at my soul. Ethan's grip tightened around my wrist, a desperate tether pulling me back from the brink. "We have to finish this," he said, voice hollow, but determined. I nodded, though my hands shook like leaves in a storm. The journal lay open on the stone altar, pages brittle and stained. It spoke of one last ritual, the final veil. It was a sacrifice and a promise, a plea to sever the forest's curse and free the souls trapped in its grasp. But the price was steep, one life for many. As I stepped forward, the shadows swirled around me like living smoke. I whispered the words etched in the ancient text, my voice barely a breath against the oppressive silence. The cavern pulsed, responding to the incantation. Shapes moved in the periphery. Faces, twisted and hollow, ghosts of those who had been consumed by the forest's hunger. Their eyes begged for release. Ethan knelt beside the altar, his face pale but resolute. "Lily, I can't do this alone." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then we do it together." We joined hands, reciting the final verse. The candles flared, casting grotesque shadows that danced like demons. Suddenly, a chill tore through the cavern. The darkness convulsed, shaping itself into a monstrous figure, a twisted reflection of humanity, limbs elongated, face a void where eyes should be. It reached for us, tendrils of shadow lashing out like vipers. I felt Ethan falter, the darkness clawing at his mind. "Stay with me," I cried, squeezing his hand. He met my gaze, a flicker of the man I loved shining through the abyss. With a roar, he pushed the darkness back, chanting louder. The entity shrieked, a sound that shook the earth and rattled my bones. Light burst from the candles, swirling in a vortex of fire and salt. The altar glowed with an eerie blue light, the sigils burning brighter with each passing moment. I took a step forward, holding the dagger up. "The sacrifice," Ethan whispered. My heart hammered. "You can't. I won't let you." He shook his head, eyes shining with tears. "It has to be me. It's my burden." "No!" I screamed, but he was already moving toward the darkness. I reached for him, but the shadows were faster. Ethan plunged the dagger into his chest, and a blinding light exploded from the wound. The darkness screamed and recoiled, unraveling like smoke in the wind. Ethan collapsed, a faint smile on his lips. I dropped to my knees, tears streaming as the cavern filled with warmth, the first warmth in months. The hollow ones were gone. The forest sighed, a mournful breath of release. Days later, I stood at the edge of the forest, the sun piercing through the canopy like a promise. I was alone, but free. The curse had lifted, but the scars remained. I held Ethan's locket tightly, feeling his presence in every beat of my heart. The forest had taken much, but it hadn't taken me. And in the quiet, I whispered a vow. Never again. I was sitting in my tiny Los Angeles apartment when the call came. The voice on the other end was cold, distant, a messenger delivering a sentence I wasn't prepared to hear. "My name is Linda, from Harper & Sons Attorneys. I'm calling about your grandfather, George Harper." The name made something inside me freeze. I hadn't thought about him in years, not since those hazy childhood memories I tried to bury. "He passed away 2 days ago," she said gently. "And you are the sole heir to his estate in Maryland." I blinked. He was gone. Just like that. The next few days were a whirlwind. I barely slept, barely ate. The city's noise, once comforting, now grated on my nerves like fingernails on glass. Memories clawed their way back. Summer vacations at the Harper estate, creaking floorboards, the smell of aged wood and damp earth. But those were shadows, distant and unclear. I packed what little I owned, filling a battered suitcase. The ticket to Maryland burned a hole in my pocket. I was reluctant to face the past, but it was waiting. The air hit me like a wall as I stepped off the plane, thick with humidity and something else, something ancient. Driving through the winding country roads, I felt eyes on me. The locals avoided my gaze, whispered behind their hands. Finally, the Harper estate emerged from the mist like a specter. An old mansion, dark and looming, its windows like empty eyes staring into my soul. The front door creaked open as if expecting me. The house was a maze of shadowed halls and faded grandeur. Dust hung in the air like a shroud. The scent of mildew and decay was overwhelming. I found the first heirlooms waiting in the parlor, an ornate mirror with tarnished silver edges, a locked wooden box etched with strange symbols, and a leather-bound diary with yellowed pages. That mirror caught my eye. It reflected not just me, but a flicker of movement behind. I shook my head. Just tired. The sun disappeared behind thick clouds as night settled. The house seemed to exhale, creaking and groaning as if waking. Lying in the guest room, I heard whispers, soft, unintelligible, but chilling. I told myself it was the wind, but when the lights flickered and the mirror's surface rippled like water, doubt crept in. I wanted to run, but something rooted me in place. The next day, I forced myself to open the diary. Its pages told of George's obsession with the occult, rituals meant to protect the family, or perhaps curse them. I read about a pact made long ago, a price paid in blood for power and prosperity. The house was more than a building. It was a prison for something dark, something angry. The town's library was my only refuge. There I met Sarah Whitman, the librarian. She seemed kind but carried a heaviness in her eyes. She spoke cautiously about the Harpers, about disappearances, madness, and the curse that hung over the family like a storm cloud. Her warnings unsettled me, but I was too deep to turn back. Back, at the estate, the paranormal events escalated. The mirror showed faces, twisted, sorrowful. The box emitted faint whispers. At night, footsteps echoed in empty corridors. Doors slammed shut. Cold spots chased me like invisible hands. I began doubting my own sanity. Frustrated and desperate, I searched for a way to open the box. The diary hinted at a key hidden somewhere on the property. In the attic, surrounded by relics of my ancestors, I found a rusted key taped inside an old trunk. The box creaked open to reveal a small, ancient talisman, a symbol I didn't recognize, but felt a terrible familiarity with. That night I dreamt of my grandmother Margaret. She looked pale, her eyes hollow but pleading. "Leave before it's too late," she whispered. I woke, gasping, the talisman cold against my chest. Was it a warning or a curse? I tried to ask the townspeople more, but they grew cold, their faces hardening. Thomas Harper, my uncle, appeared unexpectedly, his gaze sharp and unreadable. He warned me to stop digging, hinting that some family secrets were better left buried. But I was trapped in a nightmare I had to face. As the first week passed, the house felt alive, malevolent and watching. My reflection in the mirror distorted into a stranger's face. The diary's pages seemed to rewrite themselves. The boundary between past and present blurred. I was no longer a visitor. I was part of the horror. I sat alone in the parlor, the talisman cold in my palm, the house breathing around me. The shadows whispered my name. I had inherited more than property. I had inherited a nightmare. The days grew heavier with dread. Sleep was fractured by nightmares of clawing hands and pleading eyes. Every corner of the house whispered secrets I wasn't ready to hear. I began exploring the basement, cold, damp, and cloaked in darkness. The air tasted stale, heavy with something foul. Old furniture covered with sheets looked like ghosts waiting. In the farthest corner, behind a false wall, I found a hidden chamber. Symbols covered the walls, scratched deep into the wood and stone. The scent of burnt sage lingered. In the dusty study upstairs, I found a dusty genealogy book. As I traced the Harper lineage, a chilling pattern emerged. Madness, mysterious deaths, disappearances. The family legacy was a shadow that had grown too large to ignore. I also found a faded photograph of my grandfather George, but his eyes looked hollow, almost like he was warning me. Sarah returned to the estate, bringing Old Town records and diaries from past librarians. She revealed the Harpers' dark pact with an ancient entity, an offer sealed generations ago to gain wealth and protection at the cost of their souls. The curse didn't just haunt the estate, it cursed the bloodline. Her warning was clear. To break the curse, the pact must be undone, but the price was unimaginable. The talisman I found pulsed with cold energy. When I held it near the mirror, the surface rippled, revealing fleeting images of past tragedies. A child's scream, a man dragged into darkness, a woman crying by the fireplace. The mirror was a portal, a window into the torment trapped in the house. I felt a creeping sense that something was reaching for me through it. One night, the house turned violent. Doors slammed with deafening force. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes. A cold hand brushed my neck. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, hearing a voice whisper, "Join us." In the mirror, faces pressed close, their mouths moving in silence, Screams. I realized I was not just haunted. I was being hunted. I called Sarah in desperation, but the phone line was dead. The town was growing distant, hostile even. Thomas Harper warned me again, this time more aggressively. His eyes were hard as steel. You don't belong here. Leave before it's too late, he growled. But I couldn't leave, not now. Among the grandfather's belongings, I found a sealed envelope with instructions for a ritual, one that might sever the curse. The ritual required objects scattered around the estate: the talisman, a lock of my grandfather's hair, a candle made from sacred wax, and the diary. Gathering these items was a race against time and sanity. The house's malevolence grew. Whispers turned to voices. Cold spots chased me like predators. I saw fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure, a woman, pale and weeping, who seemed both warning and warning me. At times, I questioned reality. Was I losing my mind, or was the house breaking me? In the attic, I discovered an old trunk containing letters between my grandfather and an unknown correspondent, an occultist obsessed with immortality. One letter hinted at a failed ritual and a keeper of the curse left behind. The attic became my prison, the walls closing in as I read more. One night, Sarah appeared at the house unannounced, but her demeanor was strange. Her eyes glinted with something unnatural. She confessed she was protecting the town's secret, bound by the curse herself. Her betrayal left me vulnerable and alone. I began to hallucinate. Faces appearing in mirrors, voices calling from the walls. The diary's pages burned and rewrote themselves. The talisman pulsed violently in my hand, like a heartbeat syncing with my own terror. Desperate, I performed the ritual in the basement chamber. Candles flickered, shadows danced, and a cold wind blew out the flames. The house seemed to scream. The portal in the mirror opened wide, revealing swirling darkness. I was forced to confront the entity that bound my family. An ancient, merciless force. The entity offered a cruel bargain, freedom in exchange for a sacrifice. I was caught between the past sins and the hope of breaking free. Could I escape the curse, or was I doomed to become part of it? As dawn crept in, the house fell silent. For now. But the war had only just begun. I was trapped in a nightmare where the line between living and dead blurred, and the curse was hungry. The ritual left the house eerily silent for a fleeting moment, like a breath held in darkness. But then the silence shattered. Whispers returned, more urgent, more vicious. I was drained, but the entity was far from defeated. It felt as if the house itself had become a living prison, trapping me in its endless nightmare. The mirror no longer reflected my image but revealed a horrifying alternate reality. Twisted and broken versions of the past occupants. I saw my grandfather's face contorted in agony, my mother's terrified expression, and my own reflection morphing into something monstrous. It became clear that the mirror was a gateway to the curse's heart. At night, the walls began to bleed whispers, voices of past victims begging for release, warning me of the entity's hunger. One voice, soft and desperate, spoke my name and pleaded for help. I was losing grip on time and space. Days bled into nights, and memories blurred. Desperate for answers, I ventured into the nearby town. Old Mrs. Whitaker, the town's oldest resident, spoke in hushed tones of the Harper curse, the blood price, and the ancient pact that condemned us all. She warned me to leave before the entity consumed me. Sarah returned, her face pale, eyes hollow. She revealed she had tried to break free, but the curse claimed her. She begged me to end the cycle, for both our sakes. Together, we planned to confront the entity one last time. The entity finally manifested. A grotesque, shifting shadow with eyes that burned with malice. It whispered promises of power, freedom, and eternal torment. Its presence warped reality, floors bending, walls bleeding. I faced my deepest fears, forced to confront the darkness within. We gathered the remaining artifacts needed for the final ritual, each item heavy with dark history. Sarah and I prepared the basement chamber, marking ancient sigils and lighting cursed candles. The air was thick with dread and anticipation. The entity assaulted my mind, dredging up every traumatic memory, every regret. I fought to hold on to my sanity, clinging to the hope of ending the nightmare. The talisman pulsed wildly, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The ritual began under a blood moon, the house alive with unholy energy. Chants echoed, shadows writhed, and the entity lashed out violently. Sarah's voice faltered, but I pushed forward, determined to break the curse. The entity demanded a sacrifice, either Sarah or me. I faced a gut-wrenching choice: save myself or save her. The house trembled as the ritual reached its climax. The entity shrieked, writhing in agony as the ritual tore at its essence. The mirror shattered, releasing a blinding light. The house grew still, the oppressive weight lifting for a moment. Sarah lay unconscious, the curse seemingly broken, but shadows lingered. Whispers remained in the corners. I realized the battle might be over, but the war was far from won. The curse had left its mark on the house, on the town, and on me. As I looked out toward the dawn, I knew this nightmare had changed me forever. The past was never truly dead. And the shadows, they were waiting. It was strange. After the ritual, the house was quiet, almost peaceful, but the silence was suffocating, like the calm before a thunderstorm. The air was heavy, every breath feeling thick with something unseen. I wandered the halls, searching for any sign that the nightmare was truly over. But the shadows lingered, lurking just beyond the edges of my vision. At night, I awoke to faint sounds, soft footsteps on creaky floors, a child's laughter echoing down the hall. I followed the sounds to the attic, the same place where I had found the letters. There, a pale figure flickered in and out of sight, her eyes filled with sorrow and warning. I reached out, but she vanished, leaving only cold air and whispered warnings. The attic was filled with old papers, letters stained with age and tears. One letter, from my grandfather to a mysterious figure, spoke of regret and fear. He warned that breaking the curse was only the beginning. Something worse awaited those who dared meddle with the past. One evening, the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. From the blackness emerged forms, twisted, shadows that reached for me, whispering my name. I fled to the basement, clutching the talisman like a lifeline. The shadows pressed close, voices begging, screaming. I felt their cold touch, their hunger. A text appeared on my phone. Sarah's voice, trembling and urgent. She warned me, the curse wasn't gone. It had only shifted. I was the next target. Desperate, I returned to the town's library, poring over archives and forbidden texts. I uncovered a history of rituals, sacrifices, and unholy bargains made to protect the town. The Harpers were not the only family cursed. The entire town bore the scars. An old map led me to a forgotten well outside the town, said to be a gateway between worlds. As I approached, a cold wind howled, and whispers rose from the depths. I dropped the talisman into the well, hoping to sever the connection. The well's waters churned violently and the earth trembled, I felt a presence, something ancient and vengeful. The curse demanded a price, and it was far from paid. Back at the house, I confronted my own memories. Childhood moments twisted by fear and loss. The walls seemed to close in, and I faced the entity in my mind, a monstrous reflection of my darkest self. Sarah's voice echoed in my head, a warning not to trust the shadows. The house was alive, and it was playing with me. I sank deeper into madness, unable to tell reality from nightmare. Faces appeared in mirrors, hands reached through walls, and the talisman's glow dimmed. The entity was gaining strength. In a brief moment of clarity, I found a journal entry from my grandfather hinting at a way to bind the entity again. But the ritual required a sacrifice, something or someone I wasn't ready to lose. Outside, a violent storm raged, thunder shaking the house. Inside, the shadows gathered, waiting. I prepared myself for what was to come. The house was no longer just a place. It was a living nightmare, and I was trapped inside. The past was clawing its way back, relentless and unforgiving. I had to fight or be consumed. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside my mind. Every flash of lightning illuminated twisted shadows on the walls, shadows that didn't belong to me. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, the faces of the past haunted me, twisted, accusing. I hadn't heard from Sarah since her warning. My phone lay dead, and dread settled in my gut. I feared the worst. That the curse was claiming her, piece by piece. Returned to the basement where the final ritual had almost succeeded. Among the scattered relics, I found an old journal, my grandfather's. His writing was frantic, detailing a hidden truth. The curse was a parasite, feeding on family trauma and fear. The talisman was a conduit, but to sever it, I needed to destroy it completely. That night, the entity struck with fury. Walls bled black ichor, voices screamed from the void. It twisted the house like a living thing, trying to crush me beneath its grip. I barely escaped, clutching the talisman, as my last hope. The house forced me to relive memories I had buried. My parents' disappearance, my loneliness, my fear. Each memory was a trap, a doorway for the entity to invade deeper. A figure appeared at the door, a distorted version of Sarah. Her eyes were empty, her voice a hollow echo. I realized the entity had taken her, using her as bait. I faced a terrible decision: destroy the talisman and risk unleashing the curse fully, or keep it and remain its prisoner. The house seemed to pulse with dark energy, urging me to surrender. Days blurred. I couldn't trust my own mind. The entity whispered lies, promised power, threatened oblivion. I fought to stay human, but the darkness was relentless. Armed with knowledge and the last of my strength, I prepared for the final confrontation. The house trembled with anticipation. The shadows writhed, waiting to consume me. The ritual would either free me or doom me forever. I steeled myself for whatever was to come. The line between victim and monster blurred. The nightmare was almost over, or it was just beginning. I was ready to face the darkness, no matter the cost. The house was a tempest of shadows and whispers. The walls pulsed with dark life, breaths echoing from every corner. I was alone. No more friends, no more allies. Only me, the talisman, and the darkness. In the heart of the basement, where the curse was born, I faced the entity. It was a monstrous amalgamation of fear, loss, and rage, a twisted reflection of my own soul. It spoke in my voice, mimicked my memories, trying to break me. I began the final ritual, reciting the words from my grandfather's journal. The air crackled with energy. The talisman burned hot in my palm. To bind the entity, a sacrifice was needed. Not of blood or life, but of memory. Letting go of the pain that fed the curse. I had to sever my connection to my parents, to the past that haunted me. As I released my grip on the past, the entity screamed, its form dissolving into shadows. The house shuddered and fell silent. Light returned, tentative and fragile. I stood in the quiet house, feeling the weight of loss and relief. The curse was broken, but so was a part of me. I left Maryland behind, carrying only the talisman's ashes and a fragile hope. The past was a shadow, but it no longer controlled me. As I drove away, a final whisper echoed, soft, almost loving, not gone, just waiting. I shivered but kept driving. Back in Los Angeles, life seemed normal, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I'd hear a voice calling my name. The horror never fully ends, it only waits.